Active Wealth Show with your hosts, Ford Stokes and Brandy Seats. They're fiduciaries who will help protect and grow your money. Ford and Brandy will teach you how to invest and retire successfully so that your hard-earned assets are protected. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC, BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM and Active Wealth Management are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Now, here are your hosts, Ford Stokes and Brandy Seats.
Hey, and welcome to the Active Wealth Show, Activators. I'm Ford Stokes, your Chief Financial Advisor, and I'm here with Brandy Seats, the asset, and Sierra, our associate producer, and also Christian Dooley, our executive producer, and Sam's running the board for us as well. And we've got a great brand new guest for us to the show, and she's going to be on with us about once a month. She didn't know that, but she's going to be. It's going to be great. And so, Brandy, if you could just introduce our guest, we're going to let you and Annalie kind of take this first segment and take the interview for us. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for opening the show up. So we have Annalie Pino here with us, Pino like the wine. She is the Vice President of Business Development with the Alternative Group, and she's an industry subject matter expert about Beneficiary Liquidity Plan, which is a pretty amazing sort of investment strategy. We like to call it the final piece to your financial plan. It really helps you to round out even a holistic plan that you might already have in place. It's a great complement to that. So Annalie, thanks for being here with us today. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I mean, the Beneficiary Liquidity Plan is something that a lot of people don't know about. And so we're trying to educate people that there are options when loved ones pass away. How do we manage those final expenses after, the next 30, 60, 90 days? People often have funeral costs. And so I'm kind of curious, what are some of the questions that your clients have about the plan?
So I think our most common misconception is that they believe they already have a plan. And like you've told me about before, in some of our training together, there are a lot of things that you can have in place, like other life insurance, or maybe you have a cosigner on your account. But can you share with our listeners what the difference is between those kinds of accounts and a beneficiary liquidity plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step is having a plan. And we've recently sent out a survey about asking clients what their plan is. And some people have thought it out and they have life insurance policies in place, or they have cash in a safe at home, but they have a plan. But what we offer is immediate liquidity within 48 hours, and it's protected in a free trust. And it also earns interest, and it has a lot of value because of how easy it is to use. It's portable to any funeral home or cremation center, and our clients are really happy with how easy it is to use.
Right. So if, let's say they do have, some other form of investment that they intend to leave for their beneficiaries, and they think that will be sufficient to cover their final expenses, how long might it take them to access those things versus a beneficiary liquidity plan?
So to access those things, they're going to need the death certificate. And usually that can take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks just to get the death certificate. And right now it can take probably even longer with the situation. So we're looking at a good month or two before they are actually getting funds from their annuity or life insurance policy, just because of the whole claims process. So there's not just the waiting on the death certificate part, there's the also filing the claims.
Mm-hmm. So that's, pretty dramatic of a difference, having to wait 21 plus days, maybe 30 days, given our current situation, to 24 to 48 hours. That means that our family and our loved ones aren't given this additional financial burden on top of the emotional financial burden that they're already having to deal with during our last days, and they can really celebrate our lives instead of, having to have those family disputes, right?
Right. And people don't think about what the beneficiary or executor are going to be going through, right? They have legal needs, they have probate issues. On top of the funeral expenses, maybe there's travel expenses. If families coming from out of town, they're also paying for the celebration of life, renting a hall, and just those expenses start adding up. And these are things that people don't typically think about. They might only,
Right.
think of the funeral expenses, but not of all the other family expenses that they're going to incur during that time.
Right. And you have a really good story you've shared with me before that it was very impactful to me when I first heard it. And it is about Prince and his funeral cost and what his family had to do. Can you share that with us?
Yes, Brandy. So a great example is Prince. When he passed away, his family was due to inherit $300 million, but that money wasn't available immediately when they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
So the actor and comedian George Lopez actually loaned the family $20,000 to help pay for his funeral and their travel expenses. And this is something that happens every day in America, but we often don't think about it.
Right. So that's incredible. Prince had a estate of $300 million and his family couldn't access those funds in time to cover his final expenses. So to have a friend step in and help you out with that. I mean, most people in America, we're not looking at $300 million estates. So that just goes to show that it really can affect anyone. And it really sort of is a crisis that isn't, at the front of anyone's mind unless they've just experienced this.
Right. And we realize that for generations, families have found a way to just figure it out. But figuring out normally means, the siblings are down at the funeral home figuring out which credit card the funeral costs are going to go on. And we're saying, well, it doesn't have to be that way. We have a solution to that. We have a plan that you can put in place now so that your loved ones don't have to worry about that on one of the worst days of their lives.
Right. So if someone did want to consider getting a beneficiary liquidity plan and adding that, final little bolt to their financial plan, what are the requirements for them to do that?
Right. So it's a free setup for everyone. Issued to age 99 and younger. And we can put between $2,500 and $100,000 into a policy. This is money that we're just setting aside and earmarking for your family to have immediately, like within 48 hours of your passing away, so that they can pay for funeral costs and pay for different family expenses. So it's super easy to set up. It can be done over the phone, and the whole process probably takes maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah. So one of the questions I've gotten a few times is, say my client wanted to put $25,000 into a beneficiary liquidity plan, but they only needed $20,000 for their final expenses. What happens to that additional $5,000 that wasn't used?
Right. So the funeral is going to be paid for, and any excess funds left over are going to go immediately to the family. And again, that money can be used for anything that they need during that time, whether it be paying for bills, travel expenses, running a family business, anything that's going to go right to the family when they need it most.
Yeah. So it's really going directly to your beneficiaries, just like you planned. And it doesn't sound like, you're not really buying anything. You're just kind of moving your assets from one place to another place that makes it a little bit easier for your family to access. Is that right?
That's right. And your family is also receiving it tax-free. They're not paying taxes on this. It avoids probate. It is just simply moving money from one pocket to the other pocket so that they have immediate access to it when they need it.
And not paying taxes, we talk to our activators on the radio show about what it means to be an activator. And to be an activator, that is someone that builds a financial plan that is fee efficient, tax efficient, and market efficient. So this is definitely one of those tax efficient vehicles. And when we look at what we think taxes are going to do in the future, they're probably going to go up. So putting this plan in place right now to allow your beneficiaries to receive those funds tax-free down the road could potentially save them a significant amount of money.
Absolutely.
And I have a list here that Anna Lee gave me of some of the things that you might currently be invested in that you had anticipated would be a good way to kind of cover these final expenses or protect your family should something happen to you. And some of those might be life insurance or money in the bank or an annuity or other investments like stocks or bonds. And like Annalise said, all of those do require a death certificate. Even if you have like a checking or savings account and you already have it set up for transfer on death or payable on death, you still need a death certificate for that. And Annalie, I think there was Phil Graham of the Alternative Group who you work with. He shared something with me about banks being able to lock your funds.
Right. I mean, depending on how the account was
Frozen again. Oh.
depending on how the account was set up, if it's a joint account, if it's set up as and, or if it's set up as or, depending on how it's titled, the other person might not have access to that money. So it's important to make sure that that's properly titled. Another big misconception that people have is they have set up a power of attorney and they think they have that in place, but power of attorney dies when someone passes away. So even that's not going to work.
Right. So I think that's really important information for you to know and understand about your investments and how they're set up, and making sure that you really know what is going to go to who and how it's going to get there. And then if taxes and probate will be involved. But I believe we are running, we're at the end of this segment here. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back in the next segment with you. Thanks so much for tuning in today on AM 920, The Answer, for the Active Wealth Show.
Hey, and welcome back to the Active Wealth Show, Activators. I'm Ford Stokes, your Chief Financial Advisor. I'm here with Brandy Seats, the Asset, and also with Sierra and Christian and Sam. And so let's go straight to it. Well, first of all, Brandy, I wanted you to just why don't we just quickly recap your interview with Annalie? I thought it was informative. It's amazing to have that final part of your financial plan. And I just really appreciate you bringing Annalie on. It was also, that interview came from a national webinar you're doing with women-only advisors, which I thought was great. And so just any other final thoughts you have on the Beneficiary Liquidity Plan?
Yeah, so that's right. Annalie sort of joined forces with us on the national webinar for female advisors, which is super fun. So she figured she would extend that and join us on the radio today for our first segment. And she went over with us what a beneficiary liquidity plan is and how it solves the problem of the liquidity crisis during our final days. So anybody listening to this show, you've probably experienced the loss of a loved one and kind of had to deal with everything that goes along with that. I know I've had to a few times, and I was younger, but my parents were the ones that held the burden of debt financing funerals for their parents, my grandparents, when they passed away. And if you can relate to that, it's never a easy thing to do for several reasons, but then adding the financial burden part of it is just unnecessary. So a beneficiary liquidity plan fixes that. It allows your beneficiaries to gain access to your funds within 24 to 48 hours versus having to wait on a death certificate, which in the state of Georgia is about 21 days. In other states, it can take even longer than that. And given our current coronavirus crisis, that 21 days can be extended a little bit longer. So Annalie shared some great stuff with us, like those funds going to your beneficiaries tax-free. Again, it allows for fast liquidity. And she shared a story about Prince's funeral. And I'm sure this happens with tons of celebrities. We just don't hear about it, but Prince is a great example. Somebody that had $300 million in their estate, and their family had to accept a gift from George Lopez to cover those expenses because the estate was tied up. So that's kind of the benefit that a beneficiary liquidity plan gives. And Annalie went over that with us today and gave us some great advice.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the beneficiary liquidity plan. It really is that final part to your financial plan. I'm so glad that the two of y'all interact so well. I just wanted to let y'all kind of handle the interview. I'm just a huge fan of it. I feel like, listen, if you have money set aside that you're going to give to your family members anyway, if you're listening to this show or you're watching this show on activewealthshow.com, or you're listening to it on our podcast on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, I would just encourage you to consider a beneficiary liquidity plan. And here's how you can fund it. You can fund them through money that's sitting in savings or checking account, let's say you might have taken required minimum distributions and it just sat in a checking account and you didn't reinvest it, and you were going to give that money away anyway to your kids, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not going to be able to give that to your kids immediately, even if they're on the bank account with you, because the bank is going to ask for a death certificate. And also there's a lot of things in there, whether there's a cosigner on the checking account or whether it's an and or an or. There's a lot of signature issues, and the banks get really squirrely and nervous when someone dies, and they generally want that to either transfer on death or go through probate, so they don't get sued by other potential beneficiaries and heirs who also would have claim to that money. So you're better off just putting this into a beneficiary liquidity plan. You're just moving it from your right pocket to your left pocket, your left pocket to your right pocket. And it's also growing with interest. It's like interest like a CD or savings bond, which is fine. It's good. But then the money that passes to your heirs is absolutely 100% tax-free. And the way they're able to do this, if you give us a call, we'll explain it to you. But the main way that they can do this is they get the funeral director to sign off and say, yes, this person's actually passed away with a form. And we're the ones that give your family the check. And we're able to do it within 24 to 48 hours. And it's an incredible way to leave an exceptional legacy. So anyway, that's the Beneficiary Liquidity Plan. And I encourage you to give our office a call at 770-685-1777 or visit activewealth.com or activewealthshow.com and just click that set an appointment button in the upper right corner. And again, just call 770-685-1777. So now we've got Sierra Wilson going to join us here, and she's going to talk just a little bit about some good news stories, because we're trying to share good news stories here during this COVID-19 pandemic. And Sierra, go ahead and share your first positive story for segment 2 here.
Yeah, so I think this was sometime last week, maybe end of March, beginning of April. The FDA approved a historic blood treatment for COVID-19. Essentially, they're going to start testing it. It involves drawing blood plasma out of an individual who has recovered from coronavirus. So that means they built an immunity to it. And so they'll test that blood for the related antibody and then inject it into a sick patient. So how this is supposed to work is that the new antibody is going to attack the virus of the new host. This treatment was used in the 2009-2010 H1N1 pandemic, the 2003 SARS epidemic, and the 2012 MERS epidemic also. So they're not sure if it'll work, but it's kind of a positive thing that they think that it might.
We like some positive momentum there too. I'm also encouraged with, 5-minute to 15-minute testing from Abbott Labs. And so I think it's the full recovery for our economy is threefold. I mean, first of all, would be some sort of therapeutic treatment. And obviously that's more taking therapeutic pharmaceuticals and drugs. But then also with that is that blood plasma treatment, having some sort of treatment. The second would be an instant testing where you could test people instantly before they get on an airplane, before they go into an arena, or say they go into their place of business or whatever. And then the third big thing would be the vaccine. That's probably generally it takes 18 months to get a vaccine. This thing, they started working on a vaccine, I think in January, but call it, if they could fast track it and do all the stuff they need to do, call it 10 to 12 months from when all that started. That's going to get us hopefully beginning of 2021, I would hope, or end of 2020. That's probably optimistic on a vaccine, but I'm glad that people are working through that. And that's helpful. They got to make sure it's deployable and isn't going to harm anybody. But I think those things are pretty important.
I heard some more good news kind of related to that the ventilator requirements have dropped pretty drastically. The number of beds they were expecting has dropped pretty drastically. The death toll that they were projecting is far below what it actually is. Some of the deaths weren't being categorized as COVID if they had an underlying disease. So that was kind of a problem, but it sounds like some good news.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all positive. It's a lot less than 2.2 million Americans dying. I mean, that's very helpful. I think the latest projections are 60,000, which is just a mere fraction of where it's been. So I agree. I think obviously social distancing is working, but it's also working the economy over with a left and a right. It's just really tough.
God. Yeah.
It would be nice for us to get back to work. I, for one, really want college football to return. That's an important thing for me in my life. And for other people in the South, right? That's when I know that our economy is going to be all the way back as soon as we can have college football again. So we'll see how that goes. We didn't have spring football, but we only have like 3 minutes left in this segment. So what I want to do is we're going to introduce an article that was on Forbes.com that basically asked the question of is buying an annuity in a bear market a good idea? And what was interesting is Wade Fowle, who is a CFA and a principal at the American College, and also he's a professor. It talks about income and retirement income. He talked about a fund ratio, which I thought was really interesting. And what you do with a fund ratio, it helps you determine if it's a good idea for you to buy a fixed index annuity. But basically with a funded ratio, it requires calculating the household's total assets and liabilities. You take your assets, including the values for the financial portfolio, other real estate assets, as well as the present discounted value of other potential income sources, including Social Security, pensions, annuities, part-time work, et cetera. And liabilities include current debt, such as mortgage or loan balance, as well as present value of lifetime spending needs and taxes. But then what you do is you divide the total assets by the liabilities to determine the funded ratio. And if the funded ratio equals 1 or greater, in other words, we've got assets on the top and liabilities on the bottom. And so if we have more assets than our liabilities, then sufficient assets are available to cover the liabilities. The plan is precisely funded, but vulnerable to losses derailing it. And so that could mean that it's a good idea to consider a fixed index annuity to help fund your retirement. We've got like 1 minute left here. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of different annuities, also 2 famous athletes that have done that bought annuities and how they benefited and how they looked smarter than their peers. I thought that was pretty interesting. Brandy and I are going to share those 2 stories when you come back. And I'll just tell you, the 2 athletes are Babe Ruth and Steve Young. And both of them are famous athletes that we all kind of know about, even though Babe Ruth was a long time ago. But did you know that Babe Ruth didn't lose a single cent during the Great Depression? And so we'll talk through that when we get back. You've been listening to the Active Wealth Show right here on AM 920 The Answer. And welcome back to the Active Wealth Show. I'm Ford Stokes, your Chief Financial Advisor. I'm here with Brandy Seats, the Asset. Say hello, Brandy.
Hi, everyone. We're glad to have you here with us today.
Yeah. And then this starting segment 3, and Sierra has got another great, positive, uplifting story for us during this COVID-19 pandemic. And we want to share good news here on the Active Wealth Show.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much bad news right now. It's really nice to hear something good.
Right.
So the story that I have is about 2 sophomores from Silver Spring, Maryland, and they have been going on grocery runs for their neighbors who are in at-risk categories. And so they created a service project called Teens Helping Seniors. And the teens, they wear gloves while shopping, they wipe down their bags that they're delivering, and they offer curbside pickup when possible. They leave the bags at the doors, and cash is exchanged the same way. They've actually started recruiting volunteers from other private and public high schools in Maryland and Washington, D.C. And they're also recruiting college students because now we're all home, and college students are doing their online classes from home, and so they have some time to spare. So I thought that was really cool.
I'm telling you, Generation Z, they're going to be the best generation ever.
I hope so.
Yeah. No shot at your generation, Sierra. But I think they're going to be more conservative. They're also much more faith-based, just like you are. It's so service-oriented. That is so cool. What a neat story. That's so cool. All right, so We said that we would talk about two famous stories. And so since I'm the old guy, I'm going to share the Babe Ruth story. And then I'm going to let Brandy talk about Steve Young. So the old guy story is Babe Ruth. So Babe Ruth, when he was really getting going during his baseball career in 1921, his manager came to him and realized that he was blowing through all of his money and realized that baseball likely wasn't going to last forever for Babe. And he introduced him to an insurance agent with the Equitable. We actually work with Equitable Life and Casualty now, the same company that sold Babe annuities back in 1921. And from 1921 through 1927, so we bought it for like 6 years total. He put 50% of his salary into fixed annuities. And Babe would obviously like to go around and hit the bars and drink and all that kind of stuff, but he wanted to make sure that he wasn't taking any risks with his money and wanted to make sure he could live and all that stuff. Well, then 1929, the stock market crash happened, and the next 4 years were the worst 4 years in the history of the U.S. economy at the time, and really ever. And Babe Ruth didn't lose a dime. He didn't lose a dime during the Great Depression. It's remarkable. And he received $17,500 on average a year from the Equitable Insurance Company, which is now Equitable Life and Casualty. And that is the equivalent of $290,000 today. So it was remarkable. It's good to get that type of experience and to learn, I think, from what's happened in the past. And so if you have any questions on whether you should invest in a fixed index annuity or just take 20% of your nest egg and take it off the table. Some people have a false sense of security with the stock market being up right now. I mean, we've moved a lot of our clients into extremely conservative portfolios right now, trying to help them to make sure that we're protecting their nest egg, because a lot of these people don't want to go back to work, or they were within the red zone of retiring within 2 to 5 years of retiring. And so this is extremely important to them. Mm-hmm. My recommendation is to take 20% of your assets at least and invest in a fixed index annuity. And did you know that same Equitable Insurance Company, they're a highly rated carrier, BBB plus and above, I believe. And they've got a solvency ratio of 114%. So that means they've got 14% more than what their policyholders have given them, what they've grown their policyholders' money with. And they've got a product called the Teton Bonus 14 that gives you a 10% bonus, immediate bonus on your money, so you can cut your losses in half. It's like if you lost 20% in the market, you get 10% back on that money right away. And it grows using the Barclays Atlas 5 index, which is a global index that is diversified across the earth. And they're at like right around 1% growth for the year, when the S&P 500 has done what it's done, which is between a 20 and 30% loss for the year. And so I would encourage you to strongly consider that Equitable bonus, the Teton Bonus 14. We can help you with it. Feel free to give our office a call at 770-685-1777. Again, you're looking for that Atlas 5, that Barclays Atlas 5 index, so that your money can grow with market-like gains without market risk. And now the claims paying ability of the guarantee from that annuity is based on the claims paying ability of the Equitable Life and Casualty Insurance Company. But I will tell you, they're a 135-year-old company, and they've got a 114% solvency rate, which is extremely strong and something we have confidence in. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story about Babe Ruth. And it is interesting that it ties back to one of the products that we really like to present to clients now. We want to always give you specific things to act on here on the Active Wealth Show. And I encourage you to give our office a call or click that set an appointment button in the upper right corner of activewealth.com or activewealthshow.com. Set appointment you can get put into either Brandy's or my calendar, and we're happy to help you right away. So Brandy, why don't you share the a little bit more of a modern story with Steve Young. I'm the old guy. So,
Sure.
and I'd love to
So-
hear your thoughts on that.
Before I jump into Steve Young, I want to add about the atlas that Ford just mentioned with the equitable principal protected IRA option. The week of March 13th, the S&P 500 was down over 16%. And the atlas still was crediting its policies at 0.5%. And that's just one example of weeks and weeks of outperforming the market. I thought that drastic difference of negative 16 to 0.5% positive credit was just incredible.
Yeah.
And sorry.
I said me too. I agree.
Yeah. I also, before I jump out of the Great Depression that we were just talking about with Babe Ruth, another interesting fact about the Great Depression is that 60% of banks actually went under during the Great Depression, and 40% of those banks never opened their doors again, versus legal reserve insurance companies, which are what provide annuity-like investments. Not one of them went under during the Great Depression, and that is because of their reserve requirements. So that's something to think about given the tumultuous landscape that we're kind of dealing with right now.
Okay, we've got like 4 minutes left in this segment, so we'll go straight to it.
So Steve Young, he was a pro football player and a Hall of Famer. He famously played with the San Francisco 49ers, and he led them to 3 Super Bowl victories. When he was first signed out of Birmingham Young University, he was signed into a $40 million contract. And the headlines just said a $40 million contract. They didn't give you the details of that. Well, the details are that Steve Young was given an annuity that would pay out somewhere near $40 million over the 50 years that followed that. So he accepted the annuity, and it appears to have been a genius move either on his part or the part of his agent, or both of them together, but that was great advice as far as I'm concerned for Steve Young. And those annuity payouts have lasted longer than the league, and it's safe to say that he's probably made more money than anyone else involved in the league. I've read up a little bit about Steve Young. I don't know, it's probably not a secret to our listeners. I'm not a huge sports fan like Ford is, but in my reading, I found that Steve Young was a pretty cool guy. He actually drove like a 19-year-old Oldsmobile Dynamic, which I thought was awesome. A guy with, $40 million annuity contract is still just like living a minimalist lifestyle. That's awesome. And an interesting fact, his annuity actually outlasted the Oldsmobile car company. So that is just one more way that annuities can kind of protect you. And it's really great to hear when we hear these staggering number of pro athletes that are going broke after they retire because they didn't have great financial plans, that Steve Young at a very early age was well guided, and that this annuity protected him throughout his retirement.
I wonder if some of that has something to do with him, going to a school that's based in Mormonism with Brigham Young University. I think that's fantastic. It's just what a great guy. He's also an attorney, I believe. And so he's pretty smart fella. But it was a really good way. The USFL went under. The team went under. And he still was getting paid because the team had to put enough money in to pay out $40 million of annuity payments. And what else is interesting, the team thought that was leverage for them so they could say, oh, we're paying $40 million contracts to help attract athletes, but also let the public know that they were going to be just as big as the NFL. What was interesting is they just kept getting paid based on the annuity contract. So they didn't put $40 million up, but it's going to pay them $40 million over 50 years, which is amazing. I mean, it's an amazing story. And so if it works for Steve Young, I think it can work for you as an investor as well. And it's something to consider because a lot of your people listening here you're going to have a retirement of 30 plus years. And so retirement really is about income. And also you want to do it fee efficiently as well. And we'll help you do that. So listen, this has been a great segment talking about Babe Ruth and Steve Young and their annuities. When we come back, we're going to talk more about should you buy an annuity in a bear market. And Thanks for listening to us. You've been listening to Active Wealth Show right here on AM 920 The Answer. All right, we're back here on AM 920 The Answer. This is the Active Wealth Show, and I'm Ford Stokes, your Chief Financial Advisor. I'm here with Brandy Seats, the asset. Brandy, you are.
Hi. Yeah. So the first time that happened was the first time I was on the show. You said something about an asset, and it just really stuck because Matt Damon's one of my favorite actors, and his movies, he's the asset. So Chris loves to hear that too every week on the radio.
It's good for folks who didn't listen to that first show when you came on board this year. It's good for them to understand why we call you the asset. So it's always good to be branded. Brandy's got a brand, so that's good. And so Sierra, if you could just share your next positive story. This is a really good one. I like this story a lot. I love the one about the kids doing teams for seniors. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, that one was really good. I really like this one also. And so it's from Minnesota, and it was a doctor. Her name is, I'm sure I'm going to say this wrong, but her name was Dr. Suraj Ashraf Janjua. And she's apparently from Boston, and she goes back and forth between Minnesota and Boston. And a state trooper pulled her over for speeding, but instead of giving her a ticket, he gave her 5 new N95 respirator masks from his own personal stash. And he told her that she needed to be more careful because she needed to be there to help her patients. So I thought it was a great story. Yeah. And I know she was freaking out when she got pulled over. So, it was kind of a happy ending.
That's great. I'm glad they did that. And I'll tell you, they're absolutely heroes for us right now. I mean, the healthcare staff. I saw a really cool cartoon. It had Superman he ripped the S off his chest, and he gave the cape, the S cape, and he was handing it to a nurse and a doctor. And just said, "I insist." I thought it was really cool.
That's awesome.
But I mean, going into this, with only, with some PPE equipment to protect themselves. My wife is a dietitian and also is a drug rep now and serves dialysis patients. And what Diana said was she's got a friend of hers who is right on the front lines in New York, and she's going into the hospital, and she drinks her coffee in the morning. She has her breakfast, and she goes to the restroom, and then from 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., she's not drinking and she's not eating anything because she doesn't want to have to go to the restroom. Because she doesn't want to have to take off her personal protection equipment and start over because she's trying to save that equipment. So I thought that was remarkable what those people are going through.
Wow.
That's unreal. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk through, I want to talk through, a lot of folks have gone to cash during this situation. Brandy, can you hear us? You good?
I can. I'm just like, what a jump. We were talking about like people, sacrificing their health.
I gotta segue.
Well, we got to talk about it. I know.
Yeah, I don't know how to segue. So anyway, so a lot of folks have gone to cash. A lot of folks have gone to money market accounts within their investment account. And that's a way to go for sure. But at the same time, what I would encourage you to do is to consider taking the money that's in a bank CD or into a money market account and move it into a MYGA, and specifically an Ohio State life insurance MYGA that is paying 4% on a 5-year, multi-year guaranteed annuity to try to help, you grow your money. I know a lot of folks are extremely happy and proud that they're sitting in cash, not losing value right now. It's been proven also that over time, if you stayed invested, you did better than folks that went to cash. But what I would encourage you to do is to get more money out of that and more interest and more growth on your money out of that cash and invest in a 5-year MYGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity. Again, the claims paying ability, the guarantee is based on the claims paying ability of that insurance company, and that Ohio State Life Insurance Company, they have got $10 billion backing them. And that's something that is of note. and something that I would absolutely consider. And I would just strongly encourage you to consider a multi-year guaranteed annuity with that bank CD money and a lot of the money that's just sitting there safely. Another hint here, as I would not invest more than $250,000 into a money market or a CD or any FDIC insured account, because that's the top level of the FDIC insurance. We heard Brandy talk about it earlier on the show today, that you've got, that 60% of banks closed and only 40% came back during the Great Depression. And so we're in those types of levels. Not that we're in a bear market. Obviously, the Dow has improved back beyond a bear market in the last week and a half, but we're in unprecedented territories on new unemployment filings. I think there's another 6.6 million unemployment filings this week. There are economists that are saying that we're looking at 32% unemployment. That means almost 1 in 3 401ks are going to be freed up. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are listening that may have just gotten laid off, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do next and what you're going to do with your 401k, and you may need income from that 401k, with the CARES Act, you've got the ability to take income or loans or withdrawals from your 401k for the next 3 years without taking any with any penalty, and you can just repay it after 3 years. So that's something to consider, and we can help you with that. We can help you with the analysis of your 401k. We can also get you income off of your 401k and growth at the same time without being invested into the market, by putting you in the right type of annuity, whether it's a single premium immediate annuity or a multi-year guaranteed annuity or into a fixed indexed annuity. There's a lot of different annuities out there, and you need to be very careful about which one you invest in. So I'd encourage you to give us a call at 770-685-1777. I know I just introduced the 4% multi-year guaranteed annuity of Ohio State Life. We talked about 401ks as well and what to do with that bank CD money, but I want to get your thoughts, Brandy, on those as well.
Yeah, I want to add that when we're looking at bank CDs versus MYGAs as investments, your MYGAs give you tax deferral, which bank CDs do not. The interest rates are obviously higher. 4% is incredible. You're not getting that at a bank CD. And then your MYGAs also avoid probate, which is unlike a bank CD. So there are a lot of advantages there.
Yes. And so we can absolutely help you. So we have 4 minutes left in this segment. I wanted to kind of finish talking about, is buying an annuity in a bear market a good idea? You've got, really, it's about lifetime income. There's a foundation for a more robust income plan and that is less vulnerable to market downturns and to outliving savings. As the stock market experienced unprecedented growth over the past 11 years, however, many people were naturally less interested in the lifetime income options from pensions or annuities. Who wouldn't rather have all the assets today so they can invest them with the idea of earning high returns? But research conducted by Indiana University's Alessandro Previtero concluded that individuals extrapolate recent stock market returns into the future and become more comfortable with investment-based strategies when the market rises. So in other words, you've got recency bias, and you need to be careful. I mean, what a difference a month makes. Given the dramatic sell-off in equities following the coronavirus outbreak, many Americans who are approaching retirement or are already retired are inevitably asking themselves if an annuity may be a good idea after all. The research demonstrates that annuities are more popular after stock markets decline, which makes sense. But it's also a way for you to get stock market-like gains when you've got the Barclays Atlas 5 index. It's averaged 6.26% average rate of return since 2005 in its inception, and it did 10.98% last year. That is very strong, and it outperforms what most people have done when they've invested in S&P 500 spiders and other things, because generally people react emotionally, they sell off, they do other things. It's better to stay invested, and also get in an income situation. So I would encourage you, Chris is obviously messing with Brady here on the show.
Right.
That's okay. I would encourage you to invest in a portion of your assets. Take like 20% as a securities replacement or a bond replacement. Also, when you invest in a fixed index annuity, you reduce your you reduce your advisory fees you would pay, because the annuity company pays the advisor. They pay us. And so therefore you're going to reduce the amount of fees you're paying, and you've got a chance to grow that money even more. I mean, Brandy, any thoughts on that? We've got a couple minutes left here in the segment.
Yeah, just like you said, annuities are more popular after a market decline. Life insurance is more popular after a war. Don't be the person that gets to it when it's too late. So making a plan and protecting yourself now, or protecting yourself against a future decline, would definitely be my recommendation.
Yeah, but we've talked a lot on this show today. We've talked about the Beneficiary Liquidity Plan, that final piece of your plan to be able to give money to your loved ones immediately within 24 to 48 hours without a death certificate that's required in all other types of investing. That's an important piece, and I would encourage you to give our office a call for that at 770-685-1777, or click that set an appointment button in the upper right corner of activewealth.com or activewealthshow.com. And then we've also talked about fixed index annuities like the Equitable Teton Bonus 14 using the Barclays Atlas 5 index. And then also we've talked about Ohio State Life Insurance's their 4% multi-year guaranteed annuity. Again, with all annuities, it's based on the claims paying ability of those companies, and you want to look at the backing of those. But when we come back next week, we're going to talk more about positive stories of this pandemic, give you updates on the stimulus package, the new stimulus package. And thank you so much for listening to the Active Wealth Show right here on AM 920 The Answer.
Thanks for listening to the Active Wealth Show. You deserve to work with a private wealth management firm that will strategically work to protect your hard-earned assets. To schedule your free consultation, call your chief financial advisors, Ford Stokes and Brandy Seats, at 770-685-1777 or visit activewealth.com. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC, BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM and Active Wealth Management are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results.